There we go. So, hey, Facebook. I am back with my friend Karen. I didn't have a lot of time to really prep for this, but Karen is always good for reminding me about the importance of the pony up. And so if you're seeing me look sideways, I'm like looking at the camera and looking at my other screen to make sure I shared this. But what's going on, Karen? What's been going on in your world? Talk to me. It's the pony up time.
Well, I'm going to turn the tables on you. I've got a few questions. You're down in Missouri. Things are heating up in more ways than one. Oddly enough, I'm sitting in Portland right now, Portland, Oregon, which was one of the major cities for protests supporting Black Lives Matter and police justice and police retraining, et cetera, et cetera. And we are strangely silent at this end, very, very silent. This is in the middle of the trials going on for Breonna Taylor, and it's like, why are things so silent? Shootings seem to be going up. I mean, I'm confused. Like, we had this absolute passion going on there and this, support, and now there's this silence. So help me out.
I don't, and I can only speak for me, Karen. I don't know if it's silent. Um, and we talked a little bit about this, I think, in our last slide. I don't think it's silent. I think that there's been some movement in Missouri, specifically the city of St. Louis, where I live. Like, we've just come out of a heated election. I mean, heated. And St. Louis got its first Black mayor. Um, I think that we are hopeful. I believe a part of us is hopeful that with a lot of the new political changes that we will see some changes in our community for the good. Um, we are believing that our new politicians will begin to address some of and I'm even cautious with my words, some of the injustices that are happening to oppressed people. Um, so I think that's what's happening. I can't really speak to when I say protests, and I guess, and I'll push it back to you. Are you speaking to people like taking to the streets? When you say it's quiet, what do you mean?
The streets, yeah, very much so. Like I said, when the pandemic started, in the midst of the pandemic over here in Portland, we're a city with a river separating it from downtown. The suburbs are on the other side of the river, so there's quite a few bridges. But every night around 5 o'clock for an entire year, literally thousands of people would walk from the suburbs across the bridge to support. And then literally thousands would walk back about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night to go back home and, live their lives. And I'm feeling almost if things are still happening, but where is that voice? That thousands and thousands of voices.
I mean, and again, these are personal opinions. I think one of the reasons we have these conversations is for us, and we share it with the world because we want them to see the authenticity of having real conversation. I think for me, um, I'm still doing what I've been doing. Like, you see me when you are on Facebook, like Facebook ain't your platform. Like, I organize and protest differently. I think from my personal view, my personal lens, that most of those initiatives are organized by groups. And right now, they're not organizing anything because, in my personal opinion, the initial objectives have been accomplished in the city or in certain counties. Like, there are Black mayors all over. There are people of color all over. That has never happened. And we need diversity. Missouri is a hard red through and through state. It always has been. So for us to get these changes is huge. So I think that people are looking to see what this means. If we can actually get something done, again, personal opinion, people take to the streets when they're not being heard. It appears that on some level, we might be getting heard, maybe. And that's just from the outside looking in because I do not protest like traditional people protest. I do not take to the streets, but then to push back, like people are dying. They still dying in the streets. Like people are
That hasn't.
dying and no one is really doing anything right now. So I have the same question. Where you at?
Hard question. Gun control is coming in. Based on all of this, we're getting some massive movement on gun control. I looked at it pretty deep, dug into it, and while, to be brutally honest, I do carry a gun. I am trained. Went to school, learned everything I had to learn about it. I grew up with them, but at the same time was trained. I keep it well locked away, but I'm a little bit concerned at this sort of what I'm seeing as a conjunction of things happening right now that are under almost the guise of being helpful. Gun control, a lot of reasons we need to, again, the same as the police, do some hell of a lot of education, revamping, and I think control is the wrong word. Education about things. But I'm also seeing this crossing over into so many things. We talked briefly about censorship, the woke movement and things like that. And I'm getting really, really concerned that we're almost in a state of, how should I put this, happiness, relaxation that the previous administration had us constantly stressed out so bad. The pandemic had us stressed out so bad that things are kind of happening that we should be watching a little more carefully.
Well,
Yeah, education to me, as you know, is one of my passions. And to see the amount of censorship that's coming in under the guise of diversity concerns me. What do you think?
you said a lot. Gun control, like, I don't know what I don't know. Like, I used to just follow the leader. Um, I think that everybody should be able to protect themselves. So I guess I'm saying everybody should have the right to bear arms. But what does that look like in the grand scheme of things? Because people are dying. People are running around here with weapons that are supposed to be for animal hunting or that is supposed to be for military. What are we doing? I was just talking to another awesome woman earlier, and she said, no matter what we talk about, like community, it doesn't matter. Everything comes back to education and the lack thereof. So I don't think I'm against people having access to things to protect themselves, but I am against people not having the education and us not having the proper supports around how we are allowing this. So in one breath, you have one group saying we need gun reform and gun control and this and this and that, and we do. And some people are saying like just take them all away. I don't know. And then you have the other side saying just give them the guns. We want our guns. Give us our guns. Give us our guns. And there's no control. But there's no one in the middle saying what does that look like. It's like you can't see the forest for the trees. Make it make sense. Then you spoke on what was the other thing that you said? Because I want to make sure that I address it.
Woke movement and censorship, as in education, the whole thing. It's all, for me, it all blends into a level of education.
So I think every conversation we've had, we've talked about censorship. And, as I'm meeting more of my Caucasian brothers and sisters, and I'm Black, I'm standing in the intersection that there's a large piece of history that was never taught. It just wasn't taught. I mean, You even challenged me on certain things in the corner in our private group. And I'm like, well, I don't know. It wasn't taught. So, let's be honest. Like, if all you know is what you were taught, there's things that are missing that needs to be taught. And if we're going to take things away because it is offensive, then we're eliminating the ability for education. What does these things look like? Like, I guess as I'm starting to step out of the follow the leader mentality, we need both and. Like, you can't censor things. You just can't. We have to communicate. We have to commune. And then we have to understand, like, this hurts me. I just got done talking with a Caucasian woman from Lee Summit in a meeting that should have taken 45 minutes about something that is not in her community. But I needed to talk to her because I needed her to see something out of my lens, and I needed to see something out of her lens if we're ever going to shift the face of education. And then as the conversation evolved, it went into over 2 hours because she matters and I matter. And she was able to share, like, I don't know this, and I don't know this, and I don't know this. Well, I don't know this, and I don't understand this. Her views are her views for a reason. Mine's are mine's for a reason. In the intersection, we talk. We don't necessarily have to disagree, but I bet you if we start these conversations, we'll get to a place of understanding. And in that place, there's collaboration. So we have to be cautious of what we're censoring and what we're doing.
We come at it from different angles, different places, but pretty much to the same point. As you know, I'm equally passionate about education around the world and how it affects people, their ability to navigate life, access to information. I'm a little old fashioned, as you know, as in Socratic old fashioned on my education views, that education is understanding how to ask the questions and how to find the information. It's not something you go and, you just have 3 standardized answers to a question. That's just repeating rote, which is where we're standing on the history side. We, students for the last 2 generations have been giving a bite-sized piece of history of the version of history of America that's been rewritten so many times. What I'm concerned with is a lot of the diversity conversations that are happening now. One, and I'm going to be, a little my passionate self here. There seems to be an entire industry that's coming up around it that becomes another box that's checked without, again, education behind it, collaboration, a little more conversation going on, and what the hell this means to people and how they define their words. I'm a wordsmith, so to me, words are extremely powerful. How we use them, how we understand them, and how each of us understands a single word differently.
Yeah.
And at the intersection, this is where I'm hoping that we start collaborating, as in ground level understanding from each of our perspectives of what these things mean. I mean, diversity might mean a whole different thing to me than it does to you. I consider myself very lucky, and I won't use the word privileged, because to me, that's a whole different thing. There's been times in my life I was not freaking privileged, no matter how the color of my skin is. And there was the exact opposite for me in other countries. So being a white, quote unquote, person, because I'm not 100%, was detrimental and almost life-threatening for me in other countries. So these world perspectives bring it back to me on education, but more fundamentally on, as we talk, especially like our conversations, what do we mean by the actual words that we're using? What do you mean by it? What do I mean by it? Like gun control, that word.
Somebody asked me when we were at the Capitol, and then I got a question for you. Like, my friend, he asked me, because he a cool cat. Caucasian man, but he a cool cat. He an OG to me. He can you break down what wokeness means to me? That was the funniest thing ever. So I tried to pivot away from the question and start talking about something else. But then I came back and I did answer him from my perspective. And then I told him, you know, I think you woke. Like, I already think you woke. I don't even think the issue is whether people are woke. I think it's the fact that Caucasian people refuse to talk about this stuff that's happening because they don't know how to talk about it. Like, they got the same fears and concerns, and when they see these bodies dropping by these police, like, they like, wow, like they are dumbfounded. But because of their views on guns and their political stances, like, they are not going to say something openly because it sets them up to be somewhat anti their political stances. And I think the other side wants to beat a hammer in it because it's something that has never been addressed. But I'm going to pivot and ask you a question because I'm still trying to like understand as I am talking to more and more people that do not look like me and their fears around the critical race theory in the 1619 Project. I went to the Capitol the other day, this week, and I was talking to this mom. And she said something that just made me just stop dead in my tracks. I mean, I just stopped. Couldn't respond. I didn't have a response. But it made me understand why she shares the things that she shares and why she goes so hard against critical race theory. But as a Caucasian woman, and I know you're not like Caucasian because you mix with a lot of stuff, but as an African American woman, these labels, I know you hate them, but like, can you explain to me why, in your opinion, Caucasian people push so hard against critical race theory? Like, why do they not want this taught? Why is it only the standard history? We know by design, the educational system has excluded everything from history that is not Caucasian. Why don't they want this taught?
All right, you're asking me a hell of a big question. So I'm going to try and just take little pieces of it from my understanding. And I'm going to try to address the part that I think is the, almost for lack of a better word, the critical aspect of it. You're dealing with one, and this is what I was saying earlier about good intentions. And there's an old saying, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And overcompensation almost to what's happening. Critical race theory also goes into the law, and that's kind of where I've been digging around into it. And first of all, currently, and I'm just going to say it, our entire justice system is collapsing on so many levels. It really is. And the justice system wasn't unbiased before. I mean, I almost say that justice has a blindfold for a different reason. She can't see shit. But there was a format within the legal system that allows you to at least fight. It gave you a small avenue, a small world to fight in. There's critical race theory, and it's interwoven to me with this whole wokeness and what I said earlier, diversity, check the damn boxes without, we're throwing a lot of band-aids at things without addressing the actual wounds. And when you're messing with the law system, law is supposed to be a live entity anyway. It's supposed to mutate and change. It's supposed to grow with society. to the benefit of society.
But the law never was set up to allow Black people to fight. It never gave us a
Right.
voice. So I just
Right.
want to make sure I throw that out there in that context as you're explaining this.
And I'm totally agreeing. What's happened with American law is it's been cemented almost in a period of time, in a period of thought. I mean, we still have laws on the books that are slave laws.
Thank you. We're still 3/4 of a human being
Yes.
in a law that they can change, but they will not make us a whole person.
There you go. See, that's where the issue is for me. That's where I'm seeing the issue as this absolute resistance to laws. For example, certain states have these laws on the books. And that scares the shit out of me because in a legal world, anything that remains on the books is usable. You can bring that back. You can bring those babies back and you can use them to argue cases. So if we want to talk about diversity, we want to talk about equal rights and stuff, and we want to walk into the legal arena to do this, we better start dealing with this old shit and clearing the books. We need a legal system. We've got a pro and the con going on right now. We have an entire legal system from the very top to the very bottom that is in massive state of destruction. Pros and cons. Pros, let's give us a chance to get rid of some of that old stuff that's sitting on the books. Let's make some noise about that and say, we want that gone. As long as that's sitting there, that's going to be used against people. We want that gone. We want that cleaned up. We want some new justice laws. We want police training. We want education on these levels. We want uncensored access to knowledge and education. We don't want you to take away Dr. Seuss because you don't like it. That's censorship. That's canceling culture. That's dangerous shit. That means if you don't like me, you can cancel me, right? That's not what diversity and open communication is about. Because the current majority doesn't like something, they get to take it away. Okay, that's, that changes. What we like and don't like as a human species changes, and we're supposed to grow with it. So the legal system hasn't been growing. Now we're in total destruction. Like I said, from top down, this country is in destruction. And I would feel, I'm kind of, trying to work at your question, but I'm feeling that in the best of intentions, critical race theory, people for and against it, the good intentions behind it are actually derailing the train.
How? What else should African Americans or people of color do when they will not teach our history? We do not have access to resources. The law is not set up to support us, and we are dying. So what are we supposed to do?
Oh, you're asking me a question of telling you what to do, which I avoid.
I'm just asking. If you're saying CRT is like counterproductive, like that's the stance we're taking, like it's the wrong way to go about it. What is the correct way? We tried to be quiet. We tried to wait. We tried to start Black Wall Street. We've tried to do so many things. Everything that people of color has done has not worked. We've even protested. That has not worked. So now you're saying CRT is not the right way. So how do we get
I'm not saying it's not
power to
I'm
give
not
us
saying
a place at the table?
I'm not saying it's not the right way. Okay, I did not say. Okay. We have right now, thanks to the pandemic, thanks to the chaos of political, we have a moment of opportunity in the American history we've never had. Okay. Focusing on a singular ideology or a singular tool and the use of words around that. When we first set up, you had a background that said cancel culture on it. And I was like, whoa. To me, there's an entire history behind that is divisive and ostracizing to people. That's why I said cancel somebody who doesn't believe what you believe, right? And to me, there's a huge history behind that actual word that goes all the way back to the Spanish Inquisition. That's where cancel started from. So for me to see that is like, wow, that scares the shit out of me, to be honest. Because, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Let me pivot it a different way. Okay. Let's say we threw CRT in the trash. Let's say like Black folks, brown folks, people was like, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing it. What do we do? Because we cannot, full disclaimer, go back to the way it was.
Hell no.
History is not being taught correctly. There are people who are missing from the conversation. There are people who live different lifestyles. Like there are young people. There are people that are different. How do we have this conversation and move forward? Because you cannot, and I'm a Christian, like I am a Christian, but we can't force stuff down each other's throat, and we cannot just say this is the only way we're going to do this. Like what do we do in this arena of education with everything that is happening? What are people of Caucasian descent saying is the answer? Because they ultimately hold the power and they are not trying to give up the reins.
Okay. Okay, and I'm going to push right back what you just said. I feel very much when you use the word "we have the power," as in the Caucasian world. Yes and no. I'm going to push back. Yes and no. Power is like, I once did a thing. I was in India and I was trying to teach finance in the middle of nowhere, Uttar Pradesh, one of the most poverty-stricken, uneducated states in India. And I'm sitting in front of a classroom of age 5 to 18, 45 kids, basically the whole school I had. And the concept, again, we're going to the concept of power. And I'm comparing it to the dollar bill. The dollar bill, which I don't have in front of me, actually I'm going to try this one again. Everything that we do in our life is based on our own perceptions and our own concepts to start with. And then it becomes a social construct, a social idea. And then it becomes acceptable. And therein lies the power. It's the power of acceptance. Okay? So if you have a dollar, what does that mean to you? It's money, it buys you stuff, it's worth something, right? It has a value. That's your perception. It's a piece of paper. Only us putting our value, our belief into it gives it power. In reality, it's a freaking piece of paper. And that's not white privilege, is what I think of the dollar right now. And somebody's going to scream at me for destructing an American dollar. It's a piece of paper. We perceive that it has a value and a power. So if the diverse communities are perceiving that they have no power, it's a perception that they're recreating. When you realize, and then this is going to be a very basic fundamental mathematical observation, that there are more diverse colored people in the world than there are Caucasians, suddenly you have this reversal perception of what is power. Right? Power.
I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, but that doesn't change the underlying issue for me, that anything that I need, I have to go to someone that is of Caucasian descent. I control nothing, I own nothing, and anybody that is of color owns nothing. We have no power in the USA. Now that may be different in a different place. So as we try to move the needle, from my opinion, from what I see, how do we move in collective power? Because we do not have the ability to control anything. If we did, African American communities would be thriving. We would have access to resources that we don't have because it's set up for it not to be here.
What if I challenge you to pivot one more time?
Come on.
when we first talked about them, and I was traveling in my car, covering them all, Kansas City, all of that. I kept asking, where's the voice? Where's that single voice? Where's that agenda of 1, 2, 3? We want this, we want this, we want this. 1, 2, 3, and where's that voice? And I was waiting for it. I'm like, damn it, this is the moment. This is the moment when the power shift was happening. That's why I'm very concerned about how quiet it is now, because that was a monumental point in American history where there was a power shift.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it's doing this again in silence. Little pieces of people are doing things. Missouri, you're doing awesome shit. People are doing other awesome shit. I have this conversation with Jock, if he shows up, who's I've known for 8, 9 years, and we have these debates. I used to play a Black American. And I'm like, where did that go? The power shifting is going back. So when you talk about not having power, you damn it, you had it there. And it was like everybody was supporting you to have it.
What I hear you saying is, why didn't you throw gasoline on the fire? That's when you should have engulfed it. No?
What I'm asking is, where was the voice? Where was the agenda? And where was that now that has disappeared? What happened to that absolute connectedness that was happening, that gave that power shift, that created that power shift? What happened there? And I'm asking you, as your community, why did it break? What happened? Because that was
I can't speak for everybody. Like, my agenda is not the agenda of the community at large. My agenda is an agenda of reconciliation for all mankind. My agenda is one of helping marginalized communities from within by supporting people in real ways to access resources that they've never had before. My agenda is locking arms in solidarity with people until they reach those goals. My agenda is to actually build the community, like really build the community. I believe that the bigger agendas may not be the agendas of what individual people have in these communities. Like, we just want to heal. We want to reconcile.
what you just said is what I'm hearing from all directions. This. And that's my question. Your community, the community here that I talk to, another community.
Karen, I don't mean to cut you off, but you have to understand. We talk, you see what I'm doing. I'm one person of millions. And guess what? I don't hold the majority vote. I don't hold the majority conversation. I do not have the voice of the people that can make the change. But even in that little group that I have with 200 and so people, half of those people are politicians and people that got juice. They do have power to move the needle, to address the things that people like me actually care about. But their agendas are different. And they move in their individual agendas and call it ours. And that's why, whatever you're talking about, seeing additional activity, you didn't see any, that's probably why. Because you're not really speaking for us. You say you are, but you're not. That's my
all right, let me ask you another question. You are speaking for Carmen, and to a certain degree now your community. You are a voice in your community. I'm watching you grow and expand. You are a voice. But on one hand, you're saying, I, Carmen, and that's all of the world. I, Corinne, you, Carmen. My question then is, when do the I become a we?
When people want to be a part of the we, I guess I do one-on-ones with people all day, every day. And they become a we when they understand that I put no barriers on them and they can't put any on me, that we build together. So the pod is building, like it's slowly building. We are a we. As we move forward and build the pod, we do it together. As we have things that we need, we go after it together. As we need to advocate for things, we advocate together. So the we becomes the we as you do and make real connections and build relationships with people. You just can't attach something to somebody and say, swallow this and agree with it. Who you think you are? You don't know nobody. You don't get to do that.
But how do you take the we that's here and the we that's way over there and make a new we?
Like I'm doing right now. Like I'm talking to a we that I don't agree with everything she believes, and she don't agree with everything I believe. But we have made a decision that we're going to talk. We're going to do what's right for these kids. We're going to do what's right for these communities. We're going to lay down our personal political views and actually look at how do we pivot for these kids in these communities. The end. She's in one community, I'm in another. She's one color, I'm another. We don't agree on everything, but we do think and we do agree that this is madness and it must end. So that's how.
Well, then rounding back to your original question, we've almost answered it again the same way. One, to manage what we can in front of us, and then let that slowly grow. And that growth will, I think, hopefully, if we can do it strong enough, shift that balance of power not to this, but to more of a movement of this, because there is no such thing as permanently equality justice. It just doesn't exist in any form. We're human beings, but we can get it from, like I said, from this to more of a this situation. And things like critical race theory, like I said, are very narrow tools that are put here. And in order to do this, we need more tools than a single one. We need more divergent conversations. We need more ability to be more fluid in our belief systems of politics, education, and all of this. We're very fixed. When we get into a certain movement almost, we become fixed within that thought process. Does that make sense? That's how I feel.
Hey, that's what I've been saying to people on both sides as I'm talking to Republicans, my Caucasian friends that are anti-CRT, and Black folks that are anti the opposite, right? This keeps coming up. Until you get out your silo, you're going to fail kids. I don't care who you are. I don't care how many Black people you put in office. I don't care how many white people you put in office. I don't care how much money you got. You will fail children until you do right. Like, drop it. I can't stress that. I don't want this to drag on too long because too long is too much. But this was a good one. This was meaty. I'll let you close us out with whatever words that you have for the crew today. And y'all, we shifting to YouTube. So check out Becoming Carmen on YouTube. All videos from me and Karen will be on YouTube. Go ahead, Karen, close us out.
Well, what if, back to our what if, we pony up and get more fluid? And I'm just going to say, keep talking to each other. It's the only way we're going to do it. And we can agree to disagree, and it's going to happen. And that's a good thing because it shakes the brains up. So let's shake it up.
Bye, Facebook.